This is The Storied Outdoors, a podcast somewhere between Lewis and Tolkien and Lewis and Clark, finding clarity in the stories we tell and the adventures that shape us. Welcome to The Storied Outdoors. My name is Brad Hill, and I'm joined as always by my co-host and good friend Bryan Gill. And Bryan, I can't believe it, but we are drawing to a close. Season 6 of The Storied Outdoors. Never thought we'd make it this far. We're ending today's episode is technically episode 86. Wow, what a season.
Man, what a season indeed. We have covered a lot of ground in this season.
I know.
We at the beginning of the year, we said we're going to kind of camp out in two different camps,
Yes.
the Alabama fly fishing community and then the Hutchmoot community, and from the Rabbit Room with Andrew Peterson and that group. And we did that, except for one or two. Yeah.
A couple little surprises here at the end of the season that were sort of hoped for, but we weren't sure they were going to happen.
Man, and Brad, before we get into this one, I think we have to give a little bit of a teaser as what we're going to talk about at the end of this episode.
Oh my gosh, man.
I mean, so hang on, listen to this whole episode because it will be worth your time. I promise. It's
big
news.
Announcement.
Big announcement.
Big news.
Yeah. So,
man, we started off the season a lot of fun, going up to the Atlanta Fly Fishing Show, and there in Atlanta, and then you and I got to hang out. First time I got to hang out on Lake Guntersville. I've heard all about Yahtzee and Lake Guntersville, and so I got to go on my first voyage on Yahtzee to see some birds and paddle around the beautiful Lake Guntersville from y'all's place up there. It was so much fun. What a great memory.
Well, I was so glad you could join us up there. Did not expect it to be as windy as it was.
Pretty windy. Yeah, we caught a headwind and started taking on water, and but we made it. We made
it back. Cameras were dry and everything.
Yahtzee's used to you and Sarah, not you and a bear. I sat down in the back. I sat down in the back of that kayak, and it said, "Do what?"
Hold on. We need some outriggers here.
That ain't who normally sits back here. Woo.
No, we had that was a fun trip. We got to see some birds, got to see some fun
beautiful
things.
Ducks. Got some beautiful pictures. That was a lot of fun.
That was cool. The Atlanta Fly Fishing Show, man, we can't say enough good things about that. We were able to see a lot of our friends face to face and hug some necks, shake some hands, and
meet just some fans like we didn't know we had. I mean, we've seen the numbers on this many downloads or whatever of the podcast, but we don't really know what those numbers represent. So getting to meet a few of those folks that those numbers represent and how these stories have impacted them was, man, what a huge encouragement. So that was a lot of fun.
Man, yeah, that was unexpected too. I mean, we think about, like you said, we see these numbers and it's like, oh, well, that's, half of those are my mom, half of those are my sister. It's just like,
or they're like me, they download them and don't actually listen to them.
Yeah,
I got so many podcasts that are in my queue that I haven't listened to yet, but I've downloaded them. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So yeah, it was awesome to be able to talk to people who this little endeavor of mine and Brad's is making an impact on, and just very thankful to be part of your life and your day and your week. So that was cool. And then man, the second one we had, this was our first for the Storied Outdoors. It was having a group of college students.
That was cool.
And man, let me tell you something. I said it at the beginning of the season. I said I wouldn't be surprised if these students didn't win New Student Organization of the Year. A couple of weeks ago, we had our award ceremony at Sanford, and these students won New Student Organization of the Year.
That's awesome. They're doing such a good job with that adventure club.
Man, they are. They're 200 strong.
Taking trips. They've gone on some trips.
Yeah, they're planning some big stuff for the fall. Cannot wait to see what they're going to do. So proud of them and the leadership that Jacob and AK and Jackson are showing. They're just doing it the right way. And man, got a bright future with those students.
It's amazing there wasn't an outdoor adventure club from Sanford to begin with, and especially when you're nestled in such a great
Yeah.
outdoor adventure base camp like Birmingham. You know,
Oh no.
you're right there at the edge of all things at fun. You know, and you get your Oak Mountains right there. You know, there's much to be had right around there. We talk all the time about the Cahaba. There's a lot of kayaking and canoeing right there in town, but man, you're
Yeah.
just a drive away from all kinds of fun. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think that there have been some in the past. We've talked to people who they've been a part of these things, but they weren't sustainable,
Mm.
and either the leadership left or the sponsor left or something. So, for one reason or another, well, there's been several different iterations of this thing, but now, hopefully, the way that this one is being intentional about passing on leadership responsibilities to the younger students, I think it's gonna work. So,
Yeah,
looking forward to
that's
seeing the
great.
legacy that these students leave.
We followed up the Sanford Outdoor Adventure Club with some friends, new friends that we met through the podcasting world, the Dads on the Fly podcast, and that was a heap and helping of fun. We doubled up, and they joined us for an episode recording, and we joined them for an episode on their podcast for recording, and that was a great collaboration, man. Really cool.
Man, Joshua and Caleb Simmons, they're good guys, man, and they're doing some great things with the Dads on the Fly podcast. They're really talking about how being just talking about fatherhood
Hmm.
and faith and fly fishing. And one of the things that they've started doing recently is some of these father and son, I think maybe even a father daughter fly fishing trips. And that's some good stuff, man. That's when you get
Hmm.
the good conversations. So
No,
props to them.
I know they made me feel really special. You know, like whenever we got off, I mean, they were just so kind to us about what we're doing, and made
Man,
me
so
feel like
encouraging.
I was deeply encouraged by our time with them. A lot of good laughs. They were fun.
And yeah, and good stuff. If you don't follow them, go follow them, and
Hmm.
they're a good listen. We followed that one with SD Smith, author of the Green Ember series. And Brad, one thing I loved about SD was what he talked about place, and he
Hmm.
talked about really digging into where you are and your roots of where you're living. And I think that resonated a lot with kind of what we've talked about. Is you don't have to always go somewhere to
Hmm.
find adventures, and adventures don't have to always be these grand
Grand.
plans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. I came away with a much less spiritual and deep thing. I just came away with an appreciation for the word famish.
Hamish. That I think we've tried to use that as much as possible since that.
Oh, it gave me a good laugh.
Yep,
That and the other thing is like nobody be able to tell from a galloping horse.
that's exactly right.
That was a good new saying for me from SD, man. It was really fun to hang out with him, and then just to see the work that he does with he's done with his son, and that collaboration for those stories, and really, really, really cool. But boy, right after that, we dug into sort of the um, I don't know, if we'd call him the ringleader per se, but we might call him the if there's the Alabama Fly Fishing Parade had a marshal, a grand marshal for the Alabama fly fishing, that might be Matt Lewis.
Yeah, you're not going to have a conversation about fly fishing in Alabama without having Matt Lewis's name come up.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Especially, I mean, I can't wait to his book that he's working on or started work on about fly fishing, in Alabama and all the species. That's very exciting, and I hope I get to hang out with him some for some of that when he comes down this way.
yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to just kind of watch the progress of that book unfold and everything that he's doing with that. He's talking about not just freshwater fish, but all across the state, all the species that you can catch on the fly, and that pretty much includes everything that that's a fish. I mean, a lot of people think you can just you only catch trout on the fly. Well,
That's right.
that's
We're
not the case.
dispelling that. I've certainly dispelled that. I know you have too, especially
Yeah.
when I saw you catch that blue catfish one time on fly.
Yeah, Craig
Yeah,
Godwin said, "Man, you never know what you're going to pull out of there." I'm like, "Well, let's just find out." And
yeah.
pulled out a big old catfish.
That ain't no bass. That ain't no bass hybrid.
Golly, I
That's
can't
a
believe
blue
that.
catfish.
How big was that? I don't know. We didn't put a scale on it, but it was pretty dang big.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That was a lot. What a great memory. What a great
So
memory.
so fun. We had a so when we were in at Hutchmoot this past fall,
Yeah.
we met some guys, and as soon as we were talking to them, we had a really good feeling that yeah, these guys would fit in with what we're trying to do, and we'd love to hear some of their stories. The guy from Wolfbane Publishing,
Yeah,
and
our people. I think we said these are. Oh, we found our people.
found our people. Yep, yeah. And so
Yeah,
they were outdoorsmen, they were writers, they were thinkers, they were believers, and it's just really good conversation with them. And we were able to give away some books from their generosity. They sent us some, and we said, well, we're going to do this with a giveaway.
yeah, it was
And
cool.
man, it was so nice to get the confirmation that the winner had received those. And so yeah, that was a fun time, a conversation that we didn't really know where that was going to go. There was a couple of stories that we had not heard before on the podcast. One involving water. I don't know what you call them. I guess water plane, and then some
Like a float plane.
float plane, and then
Yeah, that
gigging
was.
for flounder. And I mean
Oh man, gigging.
that
That's
kind of
amazing.
it kind of expanded our repertoire there.
I know, man. That was good. Exposing people to all kinds of ways to bring in the bounty of the water.
Yep.
Nothing like gigging. I hadn't done that in a long time. I need to remedy that. That'd be a lot of fun to go flounder gigging, like what they do up there.
Yeah.
Really, really cool
Yeah, I
process.
think you got the boat to do it in.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
We
some skinny. That's some. You can get some skinny water with your boat.
skinny water. Whilst we were there in Atlanta, we the cool thing I wanted to go back to. I didn't want to skip is we got to meet in person some people that we had only really visited with on the podcast.
Yep.
And so seeing those people in the flesh, as it were, was really cool. One of those people we had recorded with for this season, we got to meet in person and see, and that was Mary Beth Meeks. And to see her art, and she had a cool booth set up there, and so that was a quite a treat to meet her. And what a fun episode that was! Man, that episode caught fire
Yeah,
around here.
man. And if you talk about just genuinely kind and and
Smiling,
just sweet person, Mary Beth Meeks. I mean, my goodness, there needs to be more Mary Beth Meeks in the world.
agree.
Just a sweet spirit, and so talented. And I don't know, just a joy to be around. You don't leave Mary Beth feeling worse about yourself.
No, no,
She makes the world a better place.
absolutely. And her art, man, to see it in person was quite a treat. I follow her on Instagram, but to really look at things closely was man, it's incredible what she does.
Man,
That whole process is so unique. Of like I think you said it on the podcast. It's like it's hard enough for me to draw, like a 2D image right side up, and here she is. She's carving something, in reverse to then paint to print onto. So she's making like a basically what amounts to a really elaborate stamp, right?
yeah,
And then painting it afterwards and giving it this depth, and it's incredible.
yeah, so
It's
talented.
so neat, a unique way to make to make aquatic art the way that she does is pretty cool.
Yeah, and we'll touch on this in a little bit, but the Matt Lewis and Mary Beth Meeks film that we got to see at the International Film Festival, man, we'll reserve that one. We got to talk about
Yeah,
Pete first. Pete
I know.
Pete Peterson, man, what a talented guy! Like, I mean, seriously, one of these guys that just kind of can do it all. I mean,
Well, I mean, when I was reading his, I was doing his whole bio intro. I mean, the dude was air traffic controller in in the Marines, and a playwright, and a boatwright, and all
yeah,
all kinds of things, man. And just talented and a good storyteller. On top of that,
mm,
just um, really cool. Got to meet him. Again, going back to Hutchmoot, that's been a place that's been a fountain of inspiration for us, and a really just a meeting place of great folks. And so I sat in on this. It was one of the breakout sessions there at Hutchmoot that Pete was sharing at this past November of 2022. And he's sharing about this experience that he had on the Camino de Santiago, the Way of St. James, which is this a pilgrimage that within the Catholic Church and the church that does it as a whole. People from all over the world come to Spain to do this trek, and he and his wife had done that along with a couple of other people that joined them to share about their experience on pilgrimage in this breakout session. But I
yeah,
could tell. I could tell there was a lot. There was so much to be said. And there's no way you could summarize. What was it? A 5 week,
Oh yeah, I mean he did
five
the whole
hundred
thing.
mile, 500 mile journey in an hour breakout session. So I asked him afterwards. I was like, "Would you be willing to join us on the podcast to share about your experience?" And man, that was rich conversation.
Yeah, and he honestly still didn't cover everything even on the podcast. I mean, there's no
No
way.
way, no way.
We
Tip
were
of the
just we
iceberg.
were just skimming the surface. And we got so right now a couple of my good friends from Sanford are on the Santiago Camino de
Oh
Santiago,
wow. Oh,
and
that's awesome.
they keep sending pictures, and we're following them along. They took a group of students, so I think that they did like a 2 week stretch, maybe 70 miles or something like that,
Yeah.
or 10-day stretch. So I'm not sure exactly the numbers, but
Oh man.
what an incredible experience. And if you ever have an opportunity to do it, I would love to do it one day. I would encourage you to look into it. I mean,
Certainly.
Kyle
Kyle
Bashir's,
Bashirs, yeah, has
he
been on the
did it.
show. Yeah,
So
he's talked about it before, and still will talk about it. Just the experience that it is, and that'd be great.
yeah.
But Pete was, and then hearing about, I still haven't been able to see the video of the play that he did, the stage adaptation of The Hiding Place, and but I remember seeing that trailer that they showed at Hutchmoot, that, and it gave me chills
Oh
whenever
man.
we saw it. So I hope to get to see that before too long. I don't know when they're going to release it, or if they've released it, or what. But
Yeah.
talented guy, and he's got a bright future. I mean, he's going to concentrate a whole lot more, I think, on the press part of what the Rabbit Room does,
Yep.
and the play or the theater, I think,
Yeah.
that they're working with. So
Yeah. Yeah. He's stepping down as executive director of the Rabbit Room and focusing on the press and theater side of
yeah,
things, which, you know what? I love it.
you could
He's
tell it
passionate
really
about that.
made his heart sing
Yeah.
when he got to talking about the play and that process and that community. Is really cool.
Man. And then we did something very new.
Yeah, we're just braving all kinds of new ground this season, man.
Well, I guess when you start a podcast, there's no rules, and so it's just like, hey, let's just do this. Let's see if it works.
Yeah,
No,
yeah. I got to come up. It was a lot of fun. I came up there to Birmingham, to the Cahaba Brewing Company, where we were graciously offered the opportunity to set up a booth, and set up our microphones and our gear, and visit with people at the International Fly Fishing Film Festival, where, as you talked about, alluded to earlier, Mary Beth Meeks and Matt Lewis, they had a film with the guys from Dorsal Films, called The Slam That Saves, and that was sort of the featured film for the festival. And gosh, what a great turnout, man. There were
oh my
so many
gosh,
people there.
yeah. I mean, and Steve Scoggins just incredible
They killed
job.
it.
He's the one who put this whole thing together, and I know there was a lot of other people. There was Rob from Deep South Outfitters and the Cahaba River Keeper, Coosa River Keeper, all these
But
different
all the
people.
giveaways, I mean,
Oh
the
man,
table of raffle items was unbelievable. Man, it was a mile long, and now a lot of hats. We contributed a couple of hats to that. But man, the highlight, of course, I think we talked about it in the episode, was the young man that won the kayak. It was this
oh
kid,
yeah,
the
yeah.
kid that
He'll
won.
he'll remember that the rest of his life.
And the whole room just sort of erupts for this young man who's won this kayak, and what a great memory. But again, we got to spend time in person with people like Mary Beth and Matt, and Stephen Rockerts, who's another great. We follow this episode up with Stephen Rockerts and getting to visit with him,
Yeah,
which was
and
awesome.
on the actual recording, we sat down and recorded some episodes with some friends, and
Yeah,
we had Andre Davis, we
yeah.
had Robin Sims, we had Paul Terry. Man,
I
it
still
just
came away with, every time I think about Robin's story about the bear claws
oh my
and
gosh.
and the tent. It was like the stuff of nightmares.
Oh, I know it. Yeah, just well, yeah, there was some good
Yeah,
stories. Andy
yeah,
Whitten,
yeah.
telling some stuff, just a complete yard sale of a boat flip, and just still and having a great time. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just not always, things are not always going to go right, but then you make the best of it. So
It was, but just great energy in the room too. Like they're telling their stories, you just kind of hear the hum of the crowd behind them. That was great fun,
so
and
much fun.
just again, so encouraged by the people that came by and loved on us, and man, just sort of fuel to the fire to keep doing the podcast. Because this is a side hobby and fun for us. So it was just a
Yeah.
real encouragement. Real
Yeah, we were
encouragement.
able to meet some other listeners there too. I mean, a lot of people would come up and say, encouraging words, and
Yeah.
it's just that, like we said it earlier, it's just that stuff goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Super fun. And then Steven Rockerts,
Man,
we finally got to record with him.
that was a long time coming.
A long time coming. I know, man. I was salivating as we talked about those daggum shore burgers.
Oh my gosh. And I
Man,
think every time I see him post
it
something, it just
gets
gets bigger and
bigger and
better.
bigger. Yeah.
I'm going to need to learn how to unhinge my jaw in order to eat one of those things. I mean, you're talking about
It's
I can't describe it.
yeah, it's enormous. I mean, that's a fork. I don't think that's a fork hamburger. I don't think you can actually like unhinge your jaw. I mean, good grief.
Man,
They look awesome though, and he's doing such a great job, and it's cool to see him sort of start. We got to see him start that business,
yeah.
and kind of know him on the front end of that, and so now to see him in full swing and
What a
just getting after it, man. It's really cool.
what a key player in this Alabama fly fishing community, and just such a
Yes.
genuinely kind person, and very just fun to be around. Yeah, just a good guy all around.
Well, the essays for this season were they were hard work this time.
Yeah, we started out strong in season one. Every other episode was an essay, and
Yeah.
as you all
Woo.
saw, we had one episode each this
Yeah.
this season. So
That well's dry.
we're trending down.
Oh man, no, yeah, we built up so many good stories. I think, and maybe we put too many out there too fast. I don't know, but I enjoyed the essays that we had this season, both a whole lot, and I certainly enjoyed reading them and recording those essays.
Man, I was so my essay was entitled Alabama Trout and Deeper Magic, and it talked a lot about my dad, my son, and my daughter, and also just this pursuit of Alabama trout, which has to this point been very elusive. And to other people listening, they're probably thinking, "What? I catch Alabama trout all the time."
All the time, just need some corn.
Yeah. I mean, golly, I must not be holding my mouth right.
I certainly am not holding my mouth right.
But it's
Mr. Miyagi, he had him going though.
oh my gosh, he was just roping them in, and to see my son catch that big old 15-inch rainbow,
I know.
what a beautiful and fun experience. I don't know. It was it was a great event, a great weekend with just you and me and the kids, Brad, and what a great memory.
It was cold. It was cold, and I found out that my old REI tent that I had lost its waterproofness,
Yeah.
and the rain fell, and the rain came in, and early in the morning, late in the night, my feet started getting real cold and wet.
Mm.
So me and Liam migrated to the old Subaru.
Old Subaru campground.
Old Subaru RV down by the river, and we made it.
What kind of van we talking
What kind
about?
of van we talking about? Liam was none the wiser. He was out cold, and I put him in there, and he didn't really know until he woke up. But
He won't ever remember the bad parts of that trip. He'll remember camping with
like,
Dad.
you remember when we slept in the car that time, Dad?
Yeah. Oh, how much fun was that? And then let's talk about Brandon Bales for just a second. He continues to tie some of the most amazing deer hair flies.
I know.
I mean, did you most recently we saw he did the redfish. He made a redfish out of deer hair.
It looks so cool.
It looks so amazing, and the way he puts them in these shadow boxes, and it's incredible. But yeah, that conversation was fun.
Yeah, I mean, who talks to people that work at NASA? By the way, for starters, let's start. works for NASA and he ties flies. But really, really liked Brandon. Just to hear, and there was I think it was him. He had messaged me afterwards, and part of that episode was interesting as he got into about his, one of the things that maybe makes him a great uh, tire of flies is the fact that he wrestles with OCD, and and I thought that was really interesting, and so he channels it making these flies, and that started a conversation with him and a pastor friend of his who also deals with that. And like, they didn't know, I don't think they knew that about one another, but that opened the door of conversation as he reflected on his story and brought that part of vulnerability in. And man, I just love that part of what we're doing is sort of opening the door to conversation about things like, I've certainly, we've talked about heavy things on here,
Yeah.
like the death of children, or as parts of stories, and how that's radically changed their lives. And even later, later in this conversation, when we talk about Rick Burgess, that was a cool part of that episode. But then we, different things like, I wrestle with OCD,
Mm-hmm.
and then that opens the door for him to talk to a friend of his that didn't know that, and all of a sudden they're bonding over this experience because we've reflected on and shared our experience and our stories, and I love that so much.
Yeah, we've seen that with this podcast so much, where people connect through scars
Yeah.
and vulnerability. And I think as men and as women who are trying to live authentic lives, it's okay to be vulnerable and
Mm.
to because there may be somebody out there who is just feeling like they're all alone, but being able to say, hey, you know what, that person's been through this very similar situation.
Yeah.
Maybe I could learn from them, or maybe I could help them go through this, so they don't feel alone. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the beauty of community right there.
Yeah. I got to, and then I wrote my essay this season was just kind of trying my very best to honor the gift that was given to me in this flat skiff, the yellow and white skiff. I got some funny looks the other day when me and Blake were taking it over to Steel Creek launch, which is a freshwater launch not far from my home, and most of the boats that go in there are your classic bass boats. And so to see this little yellow and white flat skiff with a polling platform on the back of it rolling up in there, I got some looks, and people were like, well, what the world is that? And then Blake told me this hilarious story, because he has a boat that's similar to that I've spent some time on, and he said he had a guy ask him one time, said, "Man, what's that spoiler on the back of your boat for?"
That's for the downdraft.
That's what he said. He said, "Man, when I get going real fast, it keeps the backside of that boat down in the water real strong."
Oh, I could hear Blake saying that. That's hilarious.
Oh gosh, but yeah, just wrapping my mind around that gift. I mean, it was unbelievable, and the
Uh,
experience of having a boat. I mean,
well, man, I just
I've
love how
never
you
owned
tied in. I love how you tied in riding a bike, doing a float trip, and then having a boat of your own. I mean, all of
Yeah,
that just works so well together, and you did such a great
it was
job writing
fun.
it. It was a beautiful essay.
I mean, I think there's a lot of things that maybe we take for granted, like riding a bike. It was just like it becomes humdrum, but if you stop for a minute and you really think about it, you're like, that's really fun. It's really
Mm-hmm.
cool. And like I said over and over in the a couple of times there in the essay, it was like I understand sort of the physics of riding a bike, but it's still magical, right?
Oh, it's insane, and I love.
Or floating, and you step in that drift boat and it kind of like you feel it receive you in the water. Buoyancy, yes, sure, it makes sense on paper, but it feels like this magic, especially when you float down a river that you've never been on, and like you and I have done before, and you never know what's around the bend, and you're flowing at this just comfortable, easy pace. It's just so good. And then for where I live, there's just miles and miles and miles of water. I mean, I will never see all the water that I could see just in my little area of reasonable driving distance of boat launches. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there's just countless miles of river shore and, the bay. You and I went to a part of I've been by there one time, but I've never been on the bay. And we went out into Weeks Bay, and there was just this huge area of exploration. That was a great day. We got to see, we didn't catch anything, but that was fine. But we got to see, eagles. And boy, that came on the heels of a heck of an essay or heck of an episode, by the way. I didn't even mean to segue that, but I
That
like
was
that
a beautiful
segue.
segue. I mean, I'm talking. I'm talking. I don't think it could have been better.
Oh man.
So I don't even know where to start with this one. Jimbo Metter,
Yeah, well,
just
here's where I would start. I would say I was in a local store here in Mobile. This was months ago, months and months ago, maybe even over a year ago. And I was telling them, I was meeting some of the guys, and I was just telling them about the podcast, and they said, "Man, you know who you should get on there?" I said, "No, who? I'm always interested in special local people." They said, "Man, you need to talk to Jimbo Metter." And so they started explaining to me who he was. I was like, "Dude, that'd be amazing."
yeah,
And so I had reached out to him through a website. Now, granted, this was like 2020, in the meat of the COVID, the lockdowns, and following that. And he's older, and so he was very apprehensive to meet anybody sort of outside of his bubble, as it
mm-hmm.
were, because he's caring for as we talked about, he's caring for his wife. And so I never heard much back from him. I heard anything back from him, and then we got a connection to
Yep.
him through Wade Blevins, our pal Wade Blevins, who
Man,
just
Wade
keeps
knows everybody.
I know,
I
man. He
mean,
just
everybody in this fly fishing world. I think
I know,
Wade
man.
knows and has a conversation with him, and has got a friend and a phone number. I mean,
Man, and he's like, you guys need to talk to Jimbo. And so he was down here several months ago for a business thing, I think, and he got to visit with Jimbo and connected us, and I got to have coffee with him, and told him what we wanted to do, and oh man, it was just after I had coffee with him, I think I called you, Bryan. I was like, man, he's wanting to do it, and you're not going to believe this, man. This guy's story is unbelievable. It's incredible. And I started looking around for other, like, are there other recordings of him? There are no other recordings or interviews with him other than some publications, things that are like written, and published writing, and then a couple of videos where he's highlighted for his eco tours that we talked about on the episode.
yeah, yeah, and that's not lost on us. We understand how much of
Man,
a privilege it was for us to sit down with him.
yeah,
Um,
we went over to his house and
yeah, I mean
set up in his office.
that was not going to be a Zoom recording. That wouldn't
No,
have done it justice. So
no,
I made the trip down there for that one and did not disappoint. I mean,
it
Jimbo,
was
we could have sat
phenomenal.
there for days and just
Yeah,
heard story after story after story,
yeah.
and the impact that this man has made on the outdoor industry, not just fly fishing, but just outdoors in general,
Kayaking,
kayaking, stand up
paddleboarding.
paddleboard,
Yeah,
Orvis fly fishing, retail stores. I mean, it just list goes on and on and on. And not to mention his connection with the movie Forrest Gump. And oh my
um,
gosh, I about lost it when he said, "That's all I got to say about that."
and you could tell, like after now, when I reflect back on that, him telling that he set us up. He
He
totally
did.
set us up. He was grinning from ear to ear. He knew it was coming. He was waiting for the right time to like finish that part of the conversation, and it was amazing. I
It was a
mean,
home run.
it was a home run. It was a home run.
Oh, so that was so much fun and just really, really humbled that he would take the time and just be so gracious to two strangers who are just trying to tell stories. And
Yeah.
what a great story he told.
I was talking to Blake recently. Well, when we took the boat out on this past Friday, we went up and he was telling me he had seen Jimbo recently, like after the episode released, and and because we had mentioned, I knew he had met Blake once before, and
Mm-hmm.
he didn't really remember him, and then it dawned on him. He's like, "Oh, you okay? Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I remember you now." And they got to talking, and he told Blake, he said, "Them boys did a good job, didn't they?" And
Oh,
that made me feel so good that
oh man.
he really enjoyed his time too as much as we did, and so to honor him and his story, and man, to have that archived and that memory like forever is really, really, really special.
Wow. That's so special. And then we had we have two returning guests to the show
Yeah,
last week, and Rick Burgess and Andy Blanks. Andy's the publisher. Rick was the author of this new book called Transformed. If you're looking for a personal devotional book that is
yeah,
going to take you a little further in your walk with Christ, that's a great one to do because it talks about a lot of reflection on Rick's life, and it looks at the scriptures and looks at how we're not just better versions of our old self, we're new creations in
yeah,
Christ. And so Rick did a phenomenal job on that book, and this was the first devotional that he's written by himself,
yeah.
and
In
so
his voice, he said,
in
"I
his
like that.
voice.
I like that sort of explanation. I enjoyed that part of the conversation." And then it was really fun, as you shared with him that weekend that we interviewed Jimbo. You had
Yep.
come down early and come to an event that we had at our church, and my friend Matt Armbruster from here in town ended up on short notice, on short rest, came off the bench and bailed me out and spoke at an event. And he sort of went off topic and got very personal and shared a lot of his personal story, which I didn't know involved Rick Burgess
Mm-hmm.
and Rick's story and how it had impacted Matt's life. And so that was really fun to be able to share with Rick what Matt does and the
Yep.
ministry that he does. And man, I'm telling you, Matt's ministry is a meaningful part of sort of the restoration and the healing of Mobile, of our city. Like he's an integral part of restoration work in our town. And so Rick, you know, finding out, or hearing little bits of like how the Lord has used his story that he's just, he would have
Yeah.
known that
He would he
otherwise.
wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
And Rick last time we had him on was we were talking about some heavy stuff. He talked about the death of his son Bronner and the acquisition of the farm, and that which he gave us an update on that. Looks like they're going to be moving out there. But also, this is we asked him to tell a funny story, and he told a story about his aging father who's going through dementia currently, which that in itself is not funny. That's one of the most horrible diseases I could think of, because people who are caring for those individuals, they're the ones who suffer a lot in the process. But Rick's made this comment. He said, "Sometimes you have to laugh to keep from crying."
Keep from crying. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with crying, but sometimes just this looking at the situation for what it is, and sometimes it's funny. And boy, did
Man,
he tell a funny story.
it was so, so funny. And like, they end up going fishing, and his mom was like, don't do it, Rick. It's going to break your heart. And of course, his dad cast out there like he's probably done a gazillion times.
Yeah,
When his mom said he can't remember how to make toast, but he can remember how to fish.
yeah, it all came back to him.
Yeah.
So
Some of those things are deeply ingrained into your heart. That even that mean old disease, that cruel disease, can't steal. It can't steal
yeah,
something like that from you. So that was really, and I love that part of the story, obviously. But I don't really want to spoil it. If you hadn't listened to it,
I don't want
go
to
back and
spoil it,
listen to it.
dude. Yeah,
It's such a great story, and he does such a phenomenal job telling it. Too. I think the other there's a line that I'll probably I'll utilize in the future if God forbid I have a scary scary moment. But there was I can't remember who it was. It was one of the guys from the Man Church team, and they had a pretty harrowing experience in an airplane. And one guy, Rick said, one guy looked at him and said, Rick, I'm not afraid of death, but I'm not overly fond of the process.
that's such a good line. Oh, that's a good
I was
line,
like, yeah, I'm gonna remember that line. That line
man.
that made me
And it's
laugh.
always good to talk to Andy. Andy's just he's one of
Yeah.
a dear friend, known him for a long, long time, and wanted to have him on there and have his perspective from the publisher's aspect.
It was really cool. I mean, and just talking about how to, it was encouraging for me as someone who's not a natural writer, but works at it. So when you see that sort of blinking cursor on a blank page, he gave some real sort of practical uh, encouragement that, just to, what is the question? What was it? What is the question you want to answer?
Mm-hmm.
And then you just start to talk and record yourself talking. And like that, sometimes that's easier to get going than it is to start typing. And
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'm going to remember that. And so I'm going to try to, the next essays that come along, I'm going to try to record them, me making my own notes verbally
Yeah.
before I start to try to type. And I love little practical tools like that.
Yeah. And like what Charles Martin, former, guest said, it's easier to rewrite than it is to write. He said he's a better rewriter than a writer.
Yeah.
And
Don't worry
so,
about the publishing.
yeah. So,
So
and
that was really good. It was
what a
really good.
season, man. What
What
I
a
mean,
season.
that wrapped up our guests, and here we are with this wrap up episode. And what big news
I
that
mean, right,
literally fell into our lap at 12 o'clock today right
yeah,
when we were coming onto this call.
right before we're going to record, we thought we couldn't see it today, but we didn't know what time today. But right as we were going, you had set this arbitrary time of 12 o'clock, and I was like, sure, I can hop on there at 12. And so I was already sort of logged on, and I just kind of waiting. And we get a text message from our boy Trey and Jonathan Giles, and it's ready. What is it, Brian? What was ready, buddy?
All right, so
I'm
I
still
mean, I'm
speechless,
still
dude.
speechless. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I'm just so speechless as to what happened. So back in the fall,
Gosh, what
Brad
a
and I,
story, by the way. I mean, just how it all
oh
came together.
yeah, I mean, and hey, you know what? That'd be good for us to do kind of a recap, talk about the whole process of getting everything to where it is and all
Quite
that.
the winding path.
Yes, but we went to the Noontutla, in
Which
North
we've been to
Georgia.
before and we've talked about on here before, by the
Yep,
way.
yep, just a beautiful creek,
Yeah.
beautiful area. And this time we took a film crew, and it was Brad, myself, Hugh Cheek, and Blake Walters.
Walters. Yeah.
And there was a film crew, and they videoed us for the whole weekend. The weekend was beautiful and rainy, and
Rain, but
somehow
it
the
was
rain was beautiful also.
somewhat charming. Yeah, it was that
Yeah,
charming
it
for us.
was amazing. And we had some interviews set up while we were on location by the river. They followed us. They had their gear. They were walking up and down this creek with this
I
magnificent
know.
cameras.
I know it made me so nervous because I knew how much those cameras cost,
Oh
and
no.
like he's just wading out into this sort of sketchy. I mean, you're walking out into a river. Any of you that have wade fished at all knows how easy it is to somebody's going to end up in the end up
Yeah.
in the water. I was like, "Good Lord, please don't let
And
that
there's
camera
not
end up
like
in the."
they were not wearing fishing gear, and
No,
they were just walking. I mean, these guys they are such professionals. They knew how to do their gear. They knew how to stay out of the way of fishermen. They knew where to be. Oh my gosh. So we had this idea of, let's talk about reflection.
yeah,
And, that's what we do at the Storied Outdoors. We love to reflect on stories and kind of see how those stories are shaping us and how God's using the outdoors as part of our story.
yeah.
And the product that they came out with, Brad, I really, I can't explain it, man.
It was. It is, man, what a great gift. I mean, they gave of their time. I mean, I had approached a friend. It's like, who you should reach out to, and I reached out to him, and that didn't work out. Anyway, we'll probably do an extended conversation about that. But anyway, it came around that we ended up with these guys, made some new friends, and just some extremely talented men, and very gracious to give of their time. And they hung out. They had their van setups, which were pretty impressive, also, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. There were a
they
lot of,
they live that van life. You know what
yeah,
I'm
they
talking
did.
about.
So does Blake. Blake's
Hey
all about
man,
that van life.
Blake, he shows up. I love it every time I see Blake. I saw him yesterday rolling in the Volkswagen Westphalia, which is a camper van, and that's his everyday driver, man. He just
Yeah.
rolls around that thing happy, and it makes me smile every time I see it because it's sort of lifted, got some some all terrain mud tires. He's got a brush guard on it, and It lifts up like a pop up tent, and he's just ready. Solar panels, he's ready to go. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
he's ready to
And he's
get it.
always going to catch the biggest fish. I mean, we
Oh,
roll up in there and he's caught this 20-inch.
fishiest dude I know.
Yeah, I mean, and we're catching dinks. Let me tell you, let me just preface this. If you're looking for a fly fishing video that you're going to be seeing these monsters being pulled out of this creek, this
This
is
is
not for
not
you.
the video for you.
You're going to see us catch some dinks and you're going to see us having a great time. But this is not you're not going to see big
Slow
fish coming
motion
out of you.
tarpon jumping out of
Yeah.
There's not these meat eater brown trout. Although we saw some big fish,
We
and I
saw
think
big fish. We just didn't get them.
we spooked a couple, but all we caught were these little, but albeit wild and beautiful,
We caught a
beautiful little
bunch of
fish.
them. I mean, I think we probably caught 30
Yeah,
of these little
tons of these little,
dinks.
little dinks, but
But man,
gosh, man, I couldn't believe it. What I had no premonition of what I thought it would look like. I knew what we experienced was fun and how much of a blast that it was just being there, much less making a video. And I had really no expectation. I knew it would look really cool as far as what these guys could do because we did get to see sort of some. They would preview us the shots on the screens, and I go, my goodness, that looks really cool. He's slow motion or whatever. I mean, it was just really incredible. They brought a drone out there, so they got some pretty cool.
yeah, I got a
Man, it
funny
was just
story about that drone whenever we're doing the video recap. So hey, but hey, we're gonna drop this video on Friday.
Friday.
That's this episode's coming out on a Wednesday,
Mm,
and
gosh, I
Friday
can't
is when
believe
we're
we get.
gonna
Can't
drop
believe we get
this.
to share it, man. I can't believe
It's
it.
been a long time coming, but these guys did a phenomenal job.
They just
I can't
smoked it.
wait to share their stuff because of how talented they are,
Oh yeah.
and what an incredible opportunity for somebody else to use them. So
Gosh, what a fun season, and what an unexpected way to be able to, an exciting way for us to be able to end it. Um, and I think we will this summer have a sort of a video debrief with Hugh, have Hugh on and and have which everybody knows is that listens to this regularly. We talk about Hugh from time to time, and he's been on a couple of times with us, but he's in the video with us a good bit and talks a good bit. So we'll have him join us and just tell the story about that video. It'd be great to exercise of reflection on a video called Reflections. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Brad, this has been a fun
What a
season.
great
We
season. Thank you
we
to everybody that listens. Right? I mean,
everybody listen, everybody that came on the show.
man,
And I just want to drop a little bit of a preview for this summer. We're going to have a jam-packed summer, a mini season
yeah,
of essays that have been submitted. And
some
let me
good
say,
stories.
there's some good stories, and I
Yeah.
cannot wait to share them. Um, it's going to be a fantastic summer. We're so thankful for what we had this season, but looking forward to what's next.
Man, it would not. None of this would be um, as fun if it weren't for the listeners. I mean, we're having a blast. Granted, like especially like when I think about we said it, after the Jimbo recording, we're like, I don't care if anybody listens to this. We got to do that. That was amazing. But
Yep.
people do listen to it, and we're so thankful. We're so incredibly thankful for the people that tune in. And whenever that download pops up, they listen to it on their run or they listen to it on their commute. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. We've had a handful of people that have taken us up on leaving us a review. Those have been deeply encouraging. Writing a review and sharing how much they've enjoyed it. That's been a massive blessing as we grow those reviews. That's how we grow this podcast is by those ratings and reviews on whatever your listening platform is. I think a lot of people probably listen on iTunes, but there are other platforms. But if you are an iTunes listener, that would be a huge help for us if you were to take time to write a written review and leave us a rating there on iTunes. If you have questions or if you have comments or maybe a poem or a story to share, email us at thestoriedoutdoors@gmail.com, or you can go to the website, thestoriedoutdoors.com, which is really a great place for all things The Storied Outdoors, additional content, photos from our stories, photos from our experiences, more about the authors, more about the guest, and links and find ways to connect with guests and so forth. All of that is a one-stop shop there at thestoriedoutdoors.com, and you can email us from there, and you can join us. You can join the old newsletter, which we don't send out often, but when we do, boy, does it matter. So, and that'll probably give you some information on privy information on what's coming up that we don't share on Instagram or anywhere else, but you'll be the first to hear about stuff. So sign up for that newsletter, and thank you so much for listening. We hope, this is a wrap up. There's not it's just kind of us talking about the series, but thanks for listening. And we hope these stories have encouraged you this season, encouraged you to write your own story, to maybe you need to sit down and audibly start to tell your story and then start to write and then rewrite. But to begin to write down your stories, reflect on your experiences because they matter. We're learning from them, and we've already learned so much, and we continue to grow as men and as just as people in general through the stories of people like Mary Beth or like Pete Peterson or Stephen. Each one of these stories, I came away a better person for having heard their stories. And so I think you have too, and you have a story, so take time to write those down, take time to share those stories in the place that we love to call the Storied Outdoors.